Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Many Vermont fairs and field days are folding up their tents for 2020 due to COVID-19. These venues are where 4-H'ers and their animals compete for blue ribbons and represent Vermont in shows like the Big E in West Springfield, Massachusetts. The show ring may be closed to competition this year, but the UVM Extension 4-H livestock program doesn't give up that easily. To find out how 4-H'ers are rising to the challenge, keeping competition alive, and learning life lessons along the way, Keith Silva spoke with the state livestock 4-H educator, Wendy Sorrell.
In this whole virtual world that we're now experiencing, it certainly has changed the livestock programs. We can't have the physical face-to-face clinics or shows, so we're having to recreate the program in a different way.
Talk about one of these different ways, Wendy. How are you holding a 4-H equine event this year?
This year we were combining horse judging and hippology, which in the past have been two separate contests. So hippology is, of course, the study of horse. And we decided to combine the two because one of the 4 phases of hippology is judging. So we could combine those two contests and people wouldn't have to, well, initially we were thinking they wouldn't have to travel as far. But now in using it in the virtual way that we're using it, they can participate. And we're actually doing it via email because we know that there's some kids that don't have the internet bandwidth to actually access if we posted a video for them to judge. So we've just done horse judging. One was an actual video that they could play. It was a YouTube video that they could play and watch and judge the classes, and then the other one was done by pictures.
In this project, it's the 4-H'ers who are acting as the judges. Explain how the judging works and how hard is it to judge from a picture instead of being in the ring?
Each class consists of 4 horses, and we had one of them that was geldings. So you would picture in your mind what the ideal gelding would look like in hand, and you're just literally comparing them. And the easiest way to do that is pick your top 2 and pick your bottom 2. And then from your top 2, pick your first and second.
Gotcha.
And then from your bottom 2, your third and fourth, and then your class is complete. It is a little bit harder to judge via, the virtual world because when you're judging horses from a picture, you don't get to see how they move. You don't get to see how they really stand and what they really look like. In a video, same thing, you're just seeing what happens on that time. So it's a little bit easier in a video versus pictures. But that being said, yes, there are some downfalls, but at the same time, you can watch it as many times as you want to. We gave them 4 days.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't impact the health of the animal by being there for any length of time. So that was one advantage.
A lot of fairs and field days have already been canceled. What's that going to make the 4-H livestock program look like this year?
Well, that's a very good question. As the restrictions and guidelines change almost on a daily basis, we don't know if we're actually going to be able to have a physical show. But for example, one of the things that we're doing in Working Steer is we're having a video production, write your script opportunity for kids that are in the 4-H Working Steer project area. So watch out, they may be coming after your job.
They can have it.
So they're actually picking a topic, whether it's introducing their steer or parts of a yoke or how is a cart class run. They're writing their script. They're having somebody within their home unit film it for them. They're going to have the opportunity to review it and critique it from their families and then present it. We're going to be using Flipgrid, which is a new opportunity for me to learn. So, we're learning with the 4-H'ers on the new technologies and what's available out there. That should be interesting to see what they come up with.
There's a lot of record keeping that goes along with a 4-H livestock program. Talk about how that's being affected by not having competitions and the life skills that are being learned as a result of these cancellations.
Well, what we're having them do is go through the approval form process. And what that does is officially register either their horse or their cow or their working steer on a form, and they send it in to their educator. We know they can't get all the information yet, but just go for that formality and have it done certainly the life skill that you're learning is filling out paperwork. Maybe in the future they'll be applying for the job and they fill it all out, but they don't get the job. But still, it's a life skill learned. So even though some people might think, well, it's kind of useless to go through it when we're not showing, that's not necessarily the case. You're still learning those life skills of filling out those forms, getting the information that you need. Also, if you're showing a cow, maybe your cow is turning 2 this year. Well, in order to show it as a cow, it has to appear on a prior approval form. And this might be the year that you needed it to be on that approval form. So that's why we're still going through the process with a lot of these forms. And it's one of the things that would normally happen. And so that's the other thing, trying to keep within the schedule of what would normally happen in the 4-H year. I think it's important for the youth to have that.
We've talked about horse and working steer. What plans are you coming up with for the other 4-H livestock programs?
Within the livestock world, we're trying to keep within what our normal schedule would happen. In the sheep world, we're trying to think of some videos. Instructors are filming videos. We're going to have kids maybe do the same sort of opportunity that we had for the working steer. That would normally happen in June with our sheep and goat camp. I think you've come to sheep and goat camp
Definitely.
in your past. So we're trying to, work within that time frame. Some of the other things that are happening, New England states are meeting in different groups to find out, well, what are you doing in your state? And so we can share that information with, each other. And what are you doing that's worked? And what have you done that doesn't work? So that type of thing. Also, Martha Seifert, Martha Manning, Lindy Birch, and myself are working on activity sheets that are on our website, posted underneath each project area. And currently what's been completed are dairy, horse, sheep, goat, and dog.
Wendy, it's a challenging time for everyone. What's the message you want to share with 4-Hers?
I think a lot of kids are thinking about, they might not have those face-to-face opportunities with their friends, working with their animals. Some aren't even allowed on the farms of where they lease right now. So that's a general concern. Just want them all to know we're aware of all the struggles that they're going through because we're going through them as well. And we know what they want to do. We have the same aspirations that they do for this summer and what may happen in the future. But just, know that we're doing the best we can. We don't have all the answers, but we're certainly willing to help them if they want to reach out to us with suggestions or ideas, or if they just want to vent. And so I hope we can continue in that vein to draw those kids in and have them participate in our activities.
For more information about how UVM Extension is helping farmers and Vermonters in response to COVID-19, visit uvm.edu/extension. If you're getting ready to add some annuals or put a few more perennials in your garden, now's the time to think about going native. A couple of years ago, UVM horticulturist Leonard Perry talked with author Doug Tallamy about his book, Bringing Nature Home: How You Can Sustain Wildlife with Native Plants. Tallamy discussed the connections between pollinators, plants, and people.
We have viewed one important part of what plants do, and that is that they're pretty. We treat them as decorations, but we've forgotten all the ecological functions that they have. And everywhere we manage our landscapes, we have forgotten that. And now it's such a huge area that we're suffering from the lack of the ecosystem services that these plants provide. This book focuses on one of those ecosystem services, the ability to maintain food webs so that other living things can continue to exist. We have a real drain on our biodiversity in this country because we're taking away habitat. And now the only way we're going to save these species is to share the spaces where we live and we work, and to a lesser extent where we farm. So this book talks about the relationships between plants, how they capture energy from the sun, pass it on to other organisms, how insects are a very important component of that, which is another piece of news for most gardeners. We see insects as the enemy. We've got to kill them all the time, but we will not exist as human beings on this planet if we get rid of all of our insects. So we need to plant plants that the insects can use so that other things can eat those insects so that we have the other things around.
Great. So it sounds like a pretty big topic and a lot, but why, I guess, aren't all these plants, the beautiful plants we bring in, why are native plants more important?
Well, that's that insect connection again. Let me give you one quick example. If you want chickadees in your backyard, if you want them to reproduce in your yard, it takes 4,800 caterpillars to feed one clutch of chickadees through to maturity. 4,800 caterpillars. So you've got to make those caterpillars in your yard. What are the caterpillars eating? They're eating the plants that they co-evolved with. And most species of caterpillars, 90% of them are really specific about what they can eat. So if we bring in plants from Asia, our caterpillars can't eat those, which means you're not going to get your 4,800 caterpillars and you won't have chickadees. And that's just one species of bird.
What brought this to mind? Why did you feel compelled to and write this? I know you're doing some research on this area.
Right. Well, I am an entomologist, and I have studied how insects interact with plants for a number of years. But what really stimulated this was that my wife and I moved to a new house, more or less in the country. It's now surrounded by suburbia, but it had been mowed for hay, and by the time we moved in, it was overrun with invasive species. So autumn olive and oriental bittersweet and multiflora rose, Japanese honeysuckle, and so on. And these are all plants from Asia. And the first thing I noticed in my yard is that none of our local insects were able to eat those. We started doing research on this. The news media picked it up, and people started to invite me to give talks, and then people said, we want to read about this, and I said, there's nothing to read. So finally I said I'd write a pamphlet, and the pamphlet became the book, and that's how it is.
Great. I know it's very successful too, and I know there's some great pictures in here of a lot of some of these different insects and caterpillars you're talking about, and I guess there's probably some good, it looks like a nice table here, some good take-home information for gardeners too.
Mm-hmm. We have some plant lists for every part of the country about what are some of the best, most productive plants. One last thing to leave you with. Native is not the issue here. It's productivity, because there are native plants that are very poor at supporting food webs too. So we want to focus on the plants that are good at doing that. And that's really just a subset of all of the natives that
So
are
it's
out.
not just a black and white
It's
native
not black and white,
it's
no.
just
Yeah.
how, what they can produce for the insects and
Exactly.
good stuff in here on that.
Right.
A lot of great lists. I look forward to looking at it, and thank you so much for sharing a little bit about it with us, and I hope our viewers can take some time and get up to speed on this as well.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks for the invitation.
For University of Vermont Extension, I'm Leonard Perry.
And that's our program for today. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Stay well.